What does a monkey, a crab, an elephant, and a chicken have to do with making you more money? Welcome to day 1 of 7 Day Riches. I am your guide and your host, Levi McPherson, and today we are going to be talking about how to free your mind so that you can make more money. Now, before we jump in, I want to tell you a personal story. Years ago, as a teenage boy, I was riding in the truck with my father. And at the time, I was having a rough time in life, a rough time in school. I had been picked on, and so I was sharing this with my father, telling him my woes and my pains. And as I was sharing this, he just sat on his side driving and listened. And when he thought that I was finally done, he said, "Son, you know, I was listening to the radio the other day, and I heard the most unusual story. The story was about a lady who, every time she would go down an alley, it seemed like, she would get mugged. She walks down the alley, bad guys come out. And this happened to her so frequently that the police department took note of it. And they said, you know what? This lady is like a bad guy magnet." And so they came up with an ingenious idea. What if we hire her, send her down the alley, bad guys come out, and we get them? So that's exactly what they decided to do. They hired this lady, they sent her down the alley, and sure enough, bad guys came out and they grabbed her. So he finishes his story and then he turns to me and says, "Son, do you think it's you? Just like this lady, it was something about her. Every time she'd go down an alley, she was like a magnet for these bad things happening. Do you think there's something about you that's causing you to have these bad experiences?" Now, my first thought, of course, was, "Dad, you are a jerk. Here I am, I'm opening up and I'm sharing my feelings with you, which I normally don't do, and all you can say is, maybe it's you?" And as I sat there fuming, I started to wonder, could he possibly, potentially be right? Is there something about me that's causing others to pick on me? And as I thought about it for a while, I started to realize that yes, there were things that I had been doing that had initiated a process that ultimately led into me being picked on. Now, why do I tell you this story? I tell you this story because of one reason and one reason only. Before you can change anything in your life, before you can create more wealth, before you can improve your relationships, before you can get the health and the body that you want, you have to be able to set yourself free. And the first place you have to free yourself is in your mind. And the first step to freeing yourself is to take ownership over every aspect of your life or responsibility. You see, if I allow anyone in the past, whether or not it's a family member, a friend, a bully, doesn't matter, to own a piece of responsibility over the outcome of my life, I'm still a slave. I'm still a captive. I don't have full control. But it's the most liberating thing in the world when you can say, you know what? Everything that I now am, I am in control of. And everything that will happen to me moving forward is on me. Now, I mentioned a monkey, a crab, an elephant, and a chicken. If you've never heard the story about how they capture monkeys in the wilderness, it is fascinating. What they do is they just take a coconut and they bore 2 holes in it. They bore one hole at the bottom, a smaller hole, which they feed a little rope through. They tie a knot, they take the rope, they put a stake in the ground, and then that coconut is anchored. They bore another hole in the top, that's just a little bit bigger, just big enough for a monkey to squeeze his hand into. And then they place the monkey's favorite food in the coconut. When the monkey comes along, he can easily slip his hand into that coconut. Then he grabs a hold of his food, and as soon as he does, his hand is too big to get out. And even when the captors are coming and he's freaking out, going crazy, he can't get out. But the amazing thing is that all he would have to do to be free is let go. You and I do the exact same thing. We're held captive by things that we need to let go of, things that we need to release. So for me, the story with my dad and, hey son, maybe it's you, I needed to release responsibility of the things that had happened to me, release others from that responsibility, and place it 100% on myself. Have you ever seen how they capture crabs? Crabs are a very fascinating beast. If you catch one crab, he will actually crawl right off the dock and jump back into the ocean. But the moment you capture a second crab, you throw them in a pile, one crab will grab the other one, and the other one will grab him right back, and they don't go anywhere. Then catching more crabs and keeping them captive is super easy. You just throw another crab on the pile, and he'll grab onto the other crab, and then every single crab that you throw on, they're gonna grab each other. And if one crab ever tries to get loose, guess what? Somebody's gonna reach out and grab him so that he can't get away. We do the exact same thing when we refuse to forgive others. You've heard the importance of forgiveness before, and maybe it didn't mean as much other than some high moral value. But I'm here to tell you that it is instrumental in you making more money, in you setting yourself free. Think about it for a second. The moment you forgive others, you take full ownership for what's happened in your life, and you forgive others for anything and everything, they no longer have control over you. Now, I'm here to tell you that you are an elephant. Elephants are extremely powerful. They can do amazing things. However, if you've ever seen an elephant in captive, believe it or not, they are very, very easy to hold captive. All it takes is one thin stick dug into the ground and tied to a rope. The reason why elephants stay captive with this little teeny stick that honestly they could just run and bust past with their massive strength so easily is because they've been conditioned to think that they can't get free of that stick. When they're little baby elephants, they actually tie them to a stake that they can't get loose from, and they tug on it 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 until they finally realize, guess what? I'm not getting loose. This rope and this stake are too strong for me and I'm stuck. And the captors actually do this just long enough for the elephant to learn, I can't get away. And then they replace the stake with a stick. And as the elephant grows, they actually don't have to increase the size of the stick because the elephant knows, I can't get loose. In order for you to get loose, you have to do some reconditioning. You've got to be able to change the context of things that have happened to you. One of my all-time favorite movies as a child was Karate Kid, because it's a story about how a wimpy kid ends up learning the superpower of karate, and then he's able to fend off the bullies. And hearing my earlier story, you can understand why this is a very powerful story for me, why I actually really loved the story. But one of the pivotal lessons of the story happens is Daniel LaRusso, the wimpy kid, is being taught by Mr. Miyagi. Mr. Miyagi, who knows the secrets of karate or the secrets of martial arts, agrees to teach Daniel after Daniel's been beat up. And Daniel comes over. Mr. Miyagi, first thing he does is he says, all right, wash the car. So he makes him wash the cars, but he makes him wash it in a very specific way. Then he makes him paint his fence, paint the fence. Then he makes him paint his house. Now the interesting thing that happens to Daniel LaRusso is at first he's very trusting. You know, he washes the car with diligence and then he paints the fence. But as he's going along, this starts to feel less like instruction and more like hardship, more like persecution. And so finally he hits a point where he's had enough. And he tells Mr. Miyagi what's what. And in that moment, when Daniel is ready to give up and walk away, that's when Mr. Miyagi shows him the secret he's been teaching him. The secret is he's actually been reconditioning Daniel's muscles for the secrets of karate. And only at that juncture does Daniel look back on all of the work that he's been doing, all the hardship, as a blessing. The next level for you to be free, to free yourself, is you actually have to be grateful for everything that has happened to you and that is now happening to you and that will happen to you. Now, I know that sounds hard because, you know, maybe right now you're broke, or maybe the person that you loved has left you or done something horrible. Maybe you had a rough childhood. Maybe you know, you've gone through some really traumatic things. But if you can look at those things with a spirit of gratitude, then just like that elephant, you can pull on it and snap that stick. You can break the conditioning that's been part of your past that's holding you back. Now, I did mention I would talk about chickens. I actually don't want to talk to you about chickens more than a chicken farmer. There once was a chicken farmer who went out into his chicken yard one day to find an eagle, a baby eagle. And he thought this was fascinating, this little eagle that it was young enough that it actually hadn't learned yet how to fly. And so he loved this eagle. He adopted it as a pet, but he left it in the chicken yard. He'd go and feed it with the other chickens, and the eagle ate with the chickens, and it became just like the other chickens. But as the eagle got older and got stronger, he noticed something interesting. The eagle never tried to fly. Now, this started to concern the farmer because he knew what the eagle was. The eagle wasn't a chicken. The eagle was an eagle, a big, powerful bird. But it wouldn't fly. So he took this eagle, he took it out of the chicken pen, and then he took it out into the beautiful mountains where eagles soar. And he held it on his arm, and he told the eagle, fly. And guess what? The eagle just stared at him dumbly and didn't know what to do. So he took it back home and put it with the chickens, and it acted just like a chicken. But it still concerned the farmer. So he continued every day to take this eagle out into the wilderness and to tell it that it was an eagle. And finally, one day, as he held the eagle and he said with enough passion, "You are not a chicken. You are an eagle. Fly." The eagle finally spread its wings, and took off. The eagle stayed a chicken because he believed he was a chicken. It wasn't until he believed he was an eagle that he flew. If you truly want to free your mind and have the life that you desire, you have to believe that you are more than what you are now, more than what you've done, more than what you've become. You've got to believe that right now you are, in essence, an eagle. Just like the eagle, you are big and powerful, inside and out. You have everything within your capacity to live a full, abundant, wealthy life. But you have to follow the steps. What I'd like to do now is I actually want to take you through 3 exercises that will transform the way you think and will start that process of freeing your mind. Step 1, I need you to define what money means to you. Meaning, I need you to discover what beliefs that you have with regards to money. Now, the best way to do this is to schedule some time where you can be alone. Whether or not that's somewhere in the outdoors, whether or not that's in a closet or an office or somewhere where you play some music, it's very important that you get yourself somewhere where you will not be interrupted. And then what I want you to do is I want you to think back on your earliest memory with money. The very earliest. What happened? I want you to explore that in your mind. What was the situation? Who were the individuals involved? What was the circumstance? And then finally, I want you, once you've felt it completely out, you've looked at it from multiple angles, I want you to ask yourself this question. What did that teach me about money? What belief was established? And I want you to write down every single belief. So again, go all the way back, and it may not just be one experience that tells you and defines all your beliefs, but I need you to understand what all those beliefs are. Until you understand what those beliefs are, you can't change them. And more importantly, if those beliefs are negative, they will block you from having the money that you desire. Because you will only get in life what you want, what you truly desire. And if there's a negative association linked to money, guess what? Your desire is to avoid that negative feeling. Just like for me, my wife reminded me the other day that I used to, every time we'd go out to eat, whether or not it was at a fancy restaurant or not, if there was a server involved, whenever they'd bring me the bill, I would hurry and slide it across the table to her and take my wallet out and give her my card. Why? Because I didn't want to see the bill. I didn't want it to ruin my experience. And not only that, I didn't want to feel guilty for not wanting to give a generous tip. Because every time I thought about money, it was a painful experience. Why? Because in my past, I had created these beliefs that money was bad. People that had money were bad. It was bad to spend money on me. I wasn't worthy of spending money on me. That it was bad to spend money on other people, and a whole slew of other beliefs. And because those were all based on negative associations and feelings, I pushed them out. Now what I do, I actually ask my wife for the bill. I grab it because I want to fill it out. Because it's a positive thing for me. Because I've recreated a new context with regards to spending money. See, here's the fascinating secret about this. If you can change your beliefs when it comes to money, if you can own everything about your experiences with money, if you can forgive anyone that has any negative associations to you and money. And if you can have gratitude for everything, positive and negative, and if you can change your beliefs, you can have any amount of wealth that you want. Any amount that you want. I was able to double my income in just one day with the process that I'm going to teach you next. Step 2, you have to release everyone and anyone from any negative associations that you have towards money or anything else in your life. Now, what I do is I actually follow what I call the script. It's a mental process that I go through. In essence, what I do is I get myself in a peaceful state. I close my eyes, I do deep breathing, and then I go back and I look at those individuals that are associated with that memory that was created and those emotions, and I say these words in my mind. I forgive you for any imperfections you have. And I release you from any negative effects that you have had on my life. I am so grateful that you have been part of my life. Thank you for the lessons that you have taught me. I love you. I forgive you. Thank you. Now you can write your own script. I do a couple variations to that, but the important thing is that you emotionally release them. You truly forgive them. Because to remember, unless you forgive the individuals from your past, you still have shackles on. And guess what? You are still one of those individuals in the past. I actually have had to go through and do this for myself multiple times. Step 3, you have to create new beliefs with regards to money. One of the best places to start developing this new psychology is to start with the list that you already wrote in step 1. Take a look at it, all the negative beliefs that you've written down, and then identify all of the opposites. So if money is bad, now money is good, or better yet, it's great or incredible or awesome. And then once you've done that, then you need to go through and identify why. Why is it awesome? What will it allow me to do? You have to get yourself there mentally and emotionally and spiritually. You have to allow yourself to feel every single emotion. Now there is another more advanced technique that you can do that will allow you to associate this new belief. And it's simply this. We took you in step 1 through a journey to identify what beliefs you had with money. And for a lot of us, if we're blocked, if we're still feeling captive, that means that we had negative emotions or beliefs associated with money. Those were the blocks we had to release. But in our past, we have a lot of very positive, wonderful experiences. So one of the things that you can do to create a new context or a new belief for money is take yourself to one of those places where everything is wonderful, everything is amazing. For me, one of those places was the first time that I went to Hawaii. The most relaxed I've ever been in my life was in Hawaii. In fact, I loved it so much in Hawaii that I tried to convince my wife that we needed to do everything we could to stay there instead of to come home. Whatever it is for you, find a place where everything is bright, everything feels warm. Get yourself there, allow yourself to feel it, and then introduce this new belief. But introduce it in context, meaning that if the context is, I am wealthy and generous with my money, you need to imagine yourself giving money, and you need to do it with that happy, joyful feeling inside. If you don't feel that joyful feeling inside, you still have the old context. And as long as you have the old context, it will hold you captive. One more principle that will help you with this new belief is to make sure that as you're recontexting, that it's a state of being. Meaning, not just I have money, it's I am wealthy, I am rich, and because I am wealthy, these things happen to me. Now, you should have all the tools necessary to start freeing your mind so that you can create all the wealth that you want in your life. Just to recap on that, number one, the first step is you have to take ownership for everything in your life. If you're not responsible, then who is? You're the only one that can be responsible for you. And the best part about that is when you take ownership, you are free. No one else holds you captive. Step number two, forgive. The more forgiveness that you can apply, guess what? The more freedom you have. No one in your past holds you captive. Gratitude. There is no more positive energy out there than gratitude. In fact, I just talked a little bit about going to a happy place in order to create that new context. Guess what? If you just apply the feeling of gratitude, you'll get there quickly. So that is another approach that you can take. And then finally, you need to create a new belief when it comes to money. Now tomorrow, we're going to go into some additional principles on a completely different spectrum on how to set yourself free. But before we do that, and before you watch that video, you need to follow the process of the principles that we're taught today. If you do so, I guarantee you that you will feel things and think things that you have never thought and felt in your life. And that will set in motion things that will bring to you the wealth that you desire. So until next time, do your assignment, bring joy into your life. I love you, and be prosperous.